This is the time when we usually procession for about 15 minutes with the Torah scrolls and greet everybody in the congregation. Since we're not doing that this Rosh Hashanah, I guess I have a little bit of extra time for my sermon. I always get caught at the temple. Fray Luis de Leon, a prominent 16th century Spanish literary and religious figure of Jewish converso ancestry, had been imprisoned by the Inquisition on suspicion of Judaizing. That means promoting Jewish ideas and practice, which was prohibited by the church. Upon being cleared of charges and released years later, he returned to his teaching podium at the University of Salamanca and started his lecture saying, in Latin, as it was the academic practice, Dicebamus hesterna die. As we were saying yesterday. As we were saying yesterday. This is one such, as we were saying yesterday, moment. It has been 2 years since we last gathered for the High Holy Days in this sanctuary. I had hoped, you had hoped, that this Rosh Hashanah we would be back home again at Beth-El Zedek. But once again, we worship physically distanced, but not spiritually apart. Despite all that has transpired, we pick up where we were and we move into the new year carrying the experiences and the lessons of the past, moving on to hopeful and healing tomorrows. As we were saying yesterday. But what can we say today? I have given much thought to what I want to say today. There is so much to say, and not enough time, nor enough wisdom to convey it. Charles Dickens perhaps captured best the essence of our predicament. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. All of these emotions wrapped into one in no particular sequence or balance or order we carry into the new year. The pandemic has upended everything we thought we knew, everything we have experienced and seen. Illness, suffering, death, political and social upheavals, floods, fires, personal dislocation and distancing, fear and anger, racial and cultural bigotry, anti-Semitism, uncertainty. While we all participated in the pandemic together, we each experience it in different ways, individually and as distinct communities, as a nation and as a world. American life changed decisively on March 13, 2021. The whole world was taken by surprise. Science sought to give guidance. Politics often got in the way of public health policy. Masks became for some a means of protection, while for others, a statement of ideology. Understanding the virus and developing public policy defined the elections and triggered unrest in our streets, insurrection in DC. But even as things looked daunting and despair hovered, good things were happening. Science was developing vaccines. Physicians and healthcare providers were offering care. People were volunteering, being generous with their skills and their resources. In a year that was filled with noise, we also learned to listen to the sounds of silence. Some people became more thoughtful and introspective, as others took to the streets and to social media to proclaim their values and vent frustrations. In the Zoom boxes of virtual communication, we learned to listen, to worship, to study, to be community. The pandemic highlighted the historic and long-lasting legacy of racial disparities in our nation. It triggered expression of anti-Black, anti-Asian, anti-Muslim, and anti-Semitic bigotry that lies sometimes overtly, sometimes camouflaged in the hearts of others. The physical virus put many on life support, but an even more frightening virus is putting our nation on life support, and there is no vaccine to protect us. That virus is hate. It feeds on lack of control, uncertainty, and ignorance. It erupts on the streets, in all forms of media, and in the very halls of government. To counter it, we must name it. To counter it, we must do more than decry the worst behaviors. We must uplift and celebrate the best. We have been less than our dreams, but we have been more than our nightmares. We learned new terms, concepts, and practices: critical race theory, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, cancel culture. We learned to adapt, to pivot, to create virtual communities. We determined we had reached inflection points. We learned that versatility, adaptability, and fluidity were more helpful than static and fixed responses. Some learned they could work from home, and work habits changed. Children struggled to learn virtually. Some prospered, some stumbled. We cannot minimize the pandemic's devastating consequences. It has not only impacted and killed millions in our nation, but has also brought social and emotional change to individuals and society around the world. Autocratic regimes became entrenched. Terrorism surfaced. The Taliban took over. Democracy was challenged. The pressure cooker of social distancing for some and unrelenting illness and death for others exploded with damaging consequences and long-lasting results. Social scientists estimate that COVID has lowered the life expectancy of our nation by an average of 1.5 years, the largest decline since World War II. Increased social inequality has led to what sociologists call deaths of despair, addictions to drugs and alcohol, and suicide aggravated by COVID. COVID has both exposed and worsened health inequality. The pandemic has also caused us to be afraid not only of the physical health threat of the virus, but afraid of increasing polarization, of our inability to communicate with those who have opposing ideas and antagonism to science. I am fearful. I am fearful of the ways in which we demonize the other and accuse each other. I am mindful of the Genesis narrative we read tomorrow, the binding of Isaac. This Rosh Hashanah, we feel like Isaac, with a knife impending doom poised above us, whether it be a resurgence of the COVID-19 virus or of a long festering hate of the other, the threats of war, the ravages of hurricanes and wildfires, we feel bound by realities over which we have little control. I am afraid, but I also hope. Isaac survived his ordeal, and we are here. An angel called Abraham's name, and Abraham responded, Hineni, here I am. And the angel said, do not raise your hand against the boy. Today, the angel calls again. Do not raise your hand against one another. And each of us must respond, Hineni, here I am. Here I am. The mixed legacy of COVID is that it has sharpened the extremes. It has made some people meaner, some people kinder. It has raised our awareness of the importance of science. It has turned others to heightened superstition and conspiracy theories. It has put a light and deepened poverty. It has made others wealthier. It has mired the world in despair and awakened us to the necessity of world cooperation and individual responsibility in order to achieve healing, renewal, and the future possibility of hope. COVID has reminded us that none of us is in this alone, that we are all in it together. Two short stories will illustrate this. First is the story of an anthropologist who was teaching a game to the children of an African tribe. He placed a basket of delicious fruit at the base of a tree and told the children, the first to reach the tree will get the whole basket. When he gave the start signal, he was surprised to see that the children held hands and walked together toward the basket. And when he asked why they did that, when any one of them could have run to get the basket alone, they answered, Ubuntu. Ubuntu. How can one of us be happy while the rest are unhappy? Ubuntu in their native language means, I am because we are. I am because we are. With the Tokyo Olympics recently completed, story number 2, with its stole of victories and trail of disappointments, I'd like us to turn our attention to the 2016 Olympics in Brazil. At that time, the Associated Press reported that New Zealand runner Nikki Hamlin was lying on the track dazed after a heavy fall, her hopes of an Olympic medal seemingly over. And suddenly, there was a hand on her shoulder and a voice in her ear. Get up. We have to finish this. It was American Abby D'Agostino offering help. We have to finish this, she said. It was a scene during a qualifying heat of the women's 5,000 meters that the fans will never forget. D'Agostino set aside her hopes of making the final to look out for a fellow competitor. As it happens, D'Agostino had inadvertently clipped Hamlin from behind, and they both went sprawling to the ground with about 2,000 meters to go. Instead of running ahead to complete the race, D'Agostino crouched down and put her hand on the New Zealander's shoulder, then under her arms to help her up. The two injured athletes ran together, offering each other encouragement and friendship. Ubuntu. I am because we are. American philosopher Martha Nussbaum reflects about what it means to be fully human. She writes, "Being human is based on a trust in the uncertain and on a willingness to be exposed. It's based on being more like a plant than like a jewel, something rather fragile, but whose very particular beauty is inseparable from its fragility." The thought, I'll live for my own comfort, for my own revenge, for my own anger, and I just will ignore others in society, means I won't be a human being anymore. Significantly, our High Holy Day prayers are written in the plural. We do not say, I have sinned, I have spoken ill. We confess, we have sinned, we have spoken ill, we have failed. Each one of us, separately and together, we are each part of community. Failures of one are failures of all, but the strength of one can be the strength of all. And so we have chosen to celebrate this year, distanced, but not apart. Ubuntu. I am because we are. And today we recite those same plural prayers and commitments that we affirmed 2 years ago when we last met for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur in this same Simon sanctuary, and for millennia before. The world has changed and we have changed. We have hurt and we have cried and we have lost and we have stood by. We have experienced and we have witnessed. We have learned that moving forward requires collective effort. Yes, individual initiative and creativity are important, but as part of shared endeavor and a sense of our common humanity. As we returned the Torah scroll to the Holy Ark just a few moments ago, we chanted, Chashivenu Adonai Elecha Venashuva, Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem. Cause us to return, O God, renew our days, Kekedem. Kedem is one of those words in Hebrew that means both something and its opposite. Kedem means going back, and it means going forward. We take with us the lessons of the past years, the memories, the mourning, the moments when we learned to celebrate, to cry, to laugh in ways we hadn't imagined possible. We wrap it all together in a bundle of memory and of hope, and we say, Kekedem, let us go forth, Ubuntu, together. As we were saying yesterday, L'Shana Tova, Tikatevu. May you be inscribed for a year of goodness, health, joys, and blessings. Amen.